Welcome to True Echo, where real voices rise and justice finds its moment. Here, we share powerful stories of resilience, truth, and transformation. Today's story is one you won't forget. It's about courage in the quietest place, a bathroom at school, where a young black girl stood still, and shook the entire system. The hallway outside the West End bathroom was always quiet. It was Ammani Carile's one sanctuary, 27 steps away from the cafeteria chaos and the cold eyes that seemed to follow her no matter where she sat. She didn't ask for much, just silence, just 6 minutes of peace. But that day, it wasn't empty. Tyler Crayons. Jackson Hayes. Malik Stafford. They were leaning against the wall across from the bathroom like it was a setup. Like they knew. And in a way, they did. After all, they'd been waiting for her, not to talk, not to ask, but to remind her of the mistake she made in class. The mistake of standing up, of embarrassing Tyler in front of everyone when he tried to play off a slavery joke. Ammani didn't flinch. No eye contact. No stumble. She just walked past them, hoodie on, hands in her pockets, and into the bathroom. The door groaned behind her, and she moved quietly to the first stall. Lock. Breathe. Steady. She wasn't scared. Not because she thought she was safe. But because she'd come prepared. She'd seen it building, like pressure under the floor. After gym class, after the hallway bumps, after being iced out of her science group, she felt the shift. Not random. Not accidental. Targeted. And when the note appeared on her desk that morning, plain paper, typed letters, bet you won't say nothing next time, she knew what was coming. But what they didn't know, was that she already had her phone out. Already recording. The camera sat propped up on the toilet paper dispenser, front-facing, silent mode. No flash. No beep. Just a girl with a calm voice and the clarity of someone who had enough. They entered laughing. 3 sets of footsteps. 1 stall. 1 target. You in there, Carlolel? Jackson taunted, dragging out her last name like it was funny. You gonna cry? Tyler added, kicking the door lightly. 'Cause that'd be real awkward. Laughter again. Then silence. Then Malik, she thinks she better than us. But Ammani didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because they were doing exactly what she expected. And everything was on tape. To understand why that moment mattered, you have to rewind. Back to where this story really began. Ammani lived on the south side of Fresno, in a 2-bedroom apartment with her mother and younger brother Khalil. Their place was small but safe. Books lined one wall of her room, journals covered in careful notes, law school plans scribbled across a whiteboard above her desk. UCLA. Maybe Georgetown. She hadn't decided. But she was building something. At school though, she didn't get to be Ammani the smart one. She was Ammani the black girl. One of only 7 black students out of nearly 600. That meant invisibility on good days, and scrutiny on the bad ones. The week before the bathroom incident, Mr. Patel's history class played a documentary on civil rights. When Tyler joked loud enough for the class to hear, "Here comes Professor Carroll," Ammani ignored him and raised her hand. "Mr. Patel," she said. "Can I ask why we're skipping over the police brutality part?" The room went quiet. Mr. Patel blinked. Tyler muttered something under his breath. And then she looked at him, cool as glass. "I'm relaxed. You're just uncomfortable." Even the class laughed. But Tyler didn't. Not really. Not later. That moment cost her more than she expected. Her group project partners dropped her. Coach Fernandez ignored the volleyball spike Malik accidentally aimed at her head. Mr. Braddock gave her detentions she didn't earn. And the whispers started. "She's always got an attitude. She makes everything about race. She thinks she's better than us." But Ammani wasn't arrogant. She was tired. Of pretending. Of shrinking. Of sitting alone and still being seen as a threat. So that day, when she walked into the bathroom knowing what waited, she decided she wouldn't beg. She wouldn't run. She would record. You think you're smarter than everyone, huh? Tyler's voice echoed off the stall. You always gotta correct people, Jackson chimed in. Always gotta be woke. Then Malik, low and bitter, I heard your dad dipped. That true? She stayed silent. Let the tape roll. Let them talk. When they leaned against the door, she counted her breath. Not because she was scared. Because she was calculating. 3 voices. 1 video. 1 moment. You only talk in class. Jackson sneered. Where's that mouth now? And that's when Ammani moved. She unlatched the stall door. And stepped out. Calm. Holding the phone low. Recording. You really think I'm scared of y'all? They blinked. For a second, they froze. Tyler's eyes dropped to the phone. Malik shifted. Turn it off, he said. She didn't. Keep talking, she said. You're doing great. Jackson laughed, still pretending it was a joke. Nobody's gonna care. Not yet, Ammani answered. And then, the door opened. Camille Harper. Quiet freshman. Wrong time, right place. She took one look at the scene, 3 boys cornering 1 girl, and said, do y'all need help in here? Tyler stepped back. Malik looked away. Jackson muttered, we were just leaving. And just like that, the power flipped. Ammani didn't say a word as they left. She didn't need to. Her phone stayed recording until the last sneaker squeaked across the tile. Then she calmly hit stop, slipped it into her hoodie pocket, washed her hands, and walked out past Camille without looking back. Her steps were slow, deliberate. Not heavy with fear, but full of something firmer, control. She didn't go to the principal. Didn't head to the school counselor or a teacher. She just walked straight to her next class, opened her notebook, and picked up her pen like it was any other Wednesday. But inside her hoodie, her phone was still warm. And that video? It wasn't going to sit in her gallery forever. She sent it to one person, her cousin Nadia. Nadia, a junior at Edison High, didn't go to her school, but she understood. The kind of cousin who knew how to move smart. Who didn't panic. Who knew when to drop a match and when to let it burn. 5 minutes after receiving the clip, Nadia texted back. They really tried you. You good? Ammani replied. Yeah. Just don't want them to get away with it. Nadia's next message was just 2 words. Say less. By the end of 5th period, the video was already moving. Nadia had passed it to 2 people, one on her school's Black Student Union Council, and the other, a senior who ran a popular Instagram page called Central Valley Voices. It was a local platform that spotlighted injustice in schools, mainly the kind that didn't make it to detention slips or expulsion hearings. The kind Ammani had just filmed. The video wasn't loud. No punches. No screaming. But it was sharp. Raw. Real. 3 boys in a bathroom with a girl they thought was alone, and her voice steady. Keep talking. You're doing great. That line. It echoed. By 6 p.m., the clip had over 12,000 views. By 9 p.m., it hit 48,000. Comments poured in. This is what bullying looks like when it doesn't leave bruises. She stayed calm. I would have broken down. Where is the school in all of this? By morning, the principal's office phone wouldn't stop ringing. Parents were furious. One dad threatened to call the news. Students were reposting the video, tagging the school district, calling out the silence. And Ammani? She walked into school like it was a normal Thursday. Hoodie on. Backpack zipped. But the air had shifted. People stared, not with the usual judgment, but with awareness. A few even nodded at her in the hallway. Not friends. Not even allies. But witnesses. They'd seen it. They couldn't unsee it now. She made it through first period. Then second. Right before third, the announcement came. Ammani Carile, please report to the principal's office. She didn't rush. She took her time packing up her things, then walked through the now silent halls toward the front office. Inside, Principal Garvey sat at the head of the table. To his left, Assistant Principal Lynn. To his right, School Counselor Ms. Keene. At the far end of the table, unexpectedly, was Malik's mother. Ammani sat down. Back straight. She spoke first. Why am I here? Garvey cleared his throat. We've become aware of a video circulating online. You appear to have recorded a private incident between students without permission. This may be a violation of school policy. Ammani didn't flinch. I recorded myself being harassed. Miss Carile, we understand, Assistant Principal Lynn started. No, Ammani cut in. You didn't understand when I reported Jackson for copying my homework. Or when Tyler mimicked my voice in gym. You only understand now because the whole city's watching. Ms. Keene leaned forward, voice soft. We're trying to create a safe space for you to share how you're feeling. Ammani turned to her. I didn't need a safe space. I needed a safe school. You had 2 years to figure that out. Silence. Then Malik's mom spoke up, voice tight. My son said they were just playing around. They didn't mean anything by it. Ammani looked straight at her. Would you be okay with 3 boys cornering your daughter in a bathroom? That shut the room down. Principal Garvey finally folded his hands. We're conducting a formal review of the incident. There will be consequences. We appreciate you coming forward. I didn't come forward, Ammani said, standing. The truth did. She walked out, calm. Controlled. And by the time she reached her locker, the school had released a statement on its website. We are aware of a recent incident involving several students. While we cannot comment on individual cases, we are committed to fostering an inclusive and respectful environment for all. It didn't say her name. It didn't have to. Everybody already knew. The next morning, the school didn't feel like a school anymore. At 8:15 a.m., reporters gathered outside the main office. Camera vans idled by the curb. Security guards blocked off the parking lot entrance. 3 school board officials showed up in dark suits, silent and stone-faced, and marched straight into Principal Garvey's office. Inside, the tension buzzed. Classroom chatter turned into whispers about Ammani. Not mocking, not cruel, curious, almost reverent. For some students, she was still just the girl from the bathroom video. But for others, something had changed. What Ammani had done forced them to look at their own silence, their own guilt. And she noticed. Even her teachers noticed. Mr. Patel, the history teacher who'd once looked past her raised hand, suddenly paused mid-lecture and offered an unsolicited apology. I should have said something last week, he muttered, eyes not meeting hers. When Tyler joked about you. That's on me. Coach Fernandez cornered her after gym. He didn't ramble. I should have benched Malik. I saw it. I let it slide. Ammani didn't say much. She didn't need to. They were speaking now. Finally. And not because she asked them to, but because she made them listen. That afternoon, 2 other girls came forward. One was Latina. The other, Filipino. Different grades, different stories, but the same thread. They talked about jokes at lunch, unwanted touches in the hallway, teachers who laughed it off or pretended not to hear. Their names didn't trend, but their courage rippled through the building like Ammani's had. By Thursday, the school district sent in a crisis response team. 5 adults. Clipboards. Lanyards. Tight smiles. The kind of people trained to look concerned without ever admitting fault. Ammani saw them through the office window as she walked past the main hallway. They talked in low voices while administrators pointed to folders, timelines, emails. Later that day, she was called in again, this time with her mom. Mrs. Carile walked into the meeting with no makeup, hair wrapped, work shoes still on. She didn't smile. Didn't sit back. "I appreciate y'all calling me," she said quietly. "But don't think for a second this is about concern. You're covering tracks." The counselor shifted in her seat. "We're trying to rebuild trust." Ammani's mom raised an eyebrow. "Didn't know trust was in your budget." Principal Garvey slid a printed document across the table, brightly colored with bullet points and logos. A draft of the district's new respect and inclusion policy. It looked expensive. Ammani picked it up, skimmed it, then pushed it back. "I already know what respect looks like. Y'all just forgot." The adults sat in silence. Not because they agreed, but because they couldn't deny it. Outside that room, things began to shift. Slowly. Then faster. On Friday, the school held a listening circle in the library. At first, it felt like a publicity stunt, teachers and parents sitting in beanbag chairs, pretending they wanted to hear. But something unexpected happened. People showed up. And they spoke. Real stories. Real anger. Real hurt. Kids who'd never spoken up before. Girls. Boys. Queer students. Immigrant kids. Even 2 white students admitted they laughed at jokes they didn't think were funny, just to fit in. When the mic passed to Ammani, she hadn't planned to speak. But she stood anyway. "I didn't record that video to be famous," she said. "I did it because I was tired. Tired of being the only one who sees what's happening. Tired of being told to chill. Tired of silence being the only thing that protects you." She paused, then continued, steady as ever. "But now you all saw it. And if you ignore it now, that's on you, not me." Nobody clapped. Not yet. Not out of rudeness, but because it wasn't a performance. It was a warning. The following Monday, the school issued suspensions. Tyler. Jackson. Malik. 2 weeks off campus. Mandatory counseling. It wasn't justice. But it wasn't nothing. And for once, they didn't get to walk away clean. Yet, the real change didn't come from punishment, it came from attention. The community had stepped in. A town hall was scheduled that weekend. Local parents, pastors, former students came forward. A black alum from the class of '96 returned to speak. A local college offered to host workshops on racial bias. The Central Valley Voices account, now sitting at over 200,000 followers, started a new hashtag #StillWeSpeak. Ammani received a letter in her locker a few days later. Typed. Folded. No return name. "I walked those halls too. I kept my head down. You didn't. Thank you." She tucked it inside her notebook. Did she feel proud? Not exactly. It felt more like something had cracked open, and stayed open. For once, the building didn't go back to normal. Because normal hadn't been working. 2 weeks later, the school gymnasium filled with more people than it had seen in years. It wasn't a pep rally. It wasn't a game. It was a public school board meeting, and the board had, under pressure, agreed to open it up. Parents came in droves. Teachers sat stiff in rows near the front. Students lined the back wall, some out of curiosity, some out of solidarity, and some because they just wanted to see if what happened to Ammani Carile actually meant something. The podium was plain, the mic a little wobbly. Principal Garvey sat in the front row, hands folded tightly in his lap. On one side was the district superintendent. On the other, Tyler's mother, lips pressed so thin they almost disappeared. And then there was Ammani. She walked to the mic in her favorite navy blue hoodie, the one with the tear at the sleeve, and a pair of plain black jeans. No glam, no styling. Just herself. Just Ammani. The room quieted as she stepped up. She didn't bring a speech. No note cards. Just a folded piece of paper in her back pocket, never touched. She looked up, scanned the room, and began. I wasn't supposed to be the girl in the bathroom video. Her voice was clear, not loud, not dramatic, just honest. I wasn't trying to make a point. I just didn't want to be silent anymore. She paused. See, when you're the only black girl in the room, you learn how to shrink. You learn how to speak softer, walk smaller, laugh when it's not funny. You learn how to keep others comfortable, so they don't see you as a problem. A few heads nodded quietly. Somewhere in the back, a woman wiped her eyes. But comfort is what let this happen. Comfort is why people saw things, heard things, knew things, and still looked the other way. She glanced toward the back, where students leaned against the wall. Camille was there. So was a quiet boy from art class. Even Jackson stood there, post-suspension, staring at the floor. I didn't speak up because I was brave, Ammani said. I spoke up because silence wasn't protecting me. It was protecting them. Then she folded the paper in her pocket without reading it. Walked away from the mic. And sat down. The room didn't erupt into applause. At least not right away. It was still. Heavy. Real. Then one person clapped. Then another. Then the whole room stood. Not because it was a perfect speech. But because it was the truth. The following week, the school made promises, and, surprisingly, followed through. Mandatory bias training became part of staff orientation. A new student-led committee was formed for safety and equity, with real power to recommend disciplinary actions. An anonymous reporting app was rolled out, not one of those fake surveys that disappeared into cyberspace. It had backing, tracking, and actual response deadlines. For once, the school wasn't sweeping things under the rug. They were lifting the rug up entirely, and letting the light hit everything. Ammani didn't join the committees. She didn't need to. She had already done her part. She went back to her routines, books, notebook pages, those quiet hallway walks that made her feel like she still had control of something. But things weren't quite the same. Teachers paused when she raised her hand now. Students nodded when they passed her. And one day, just after final bell, Jackson left a note in her locker. Nothing long. No apology, not exactly. Just a folded sheet of paper. Didn't know you were recording. I get why you did it. She didn't write back. She didn't need to. Because this wasn't about Jackson. And honestly, it wasn't even about her anymore. It was about all the moments people stayed silent, and the one moment someone didn't. Spring had just begun to stretch across Fresno, early blossoms outside the windows, longer days, a little more sunlight in the air. Ammani stood outside the school gate one afternoon, waiting for her mom's car like she had 100 times before. This time, she wasn't alone. Camille walked up beside her, backpack slung low, hoodie pulled halfway over her head. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Camille glanced sideways and asked, "You ever get scared?" Ammani thought about it. About the bathroom. The hallway silence. The way Malik had stared through her like she didn't belong. About how easy it would have been to walk away, delete the video, keep her head down, and just survive. She didn't try to sugarcoat it. "Yeah," she said. "But scared doesn't mean quiet." Camille smiled. "I'm glad I walked in when I did. Ammani gave her a small nod. Me too. They stood in that stillness for a while, two girls who hadn't chosen to be in a spotlight, but who had met it anyway. That weekend, a local news station aired a segment on student safety and accountability. It was a short piece, but they showed a still frame of Ammani from the gym speech. The camera caught her mid-sentence, calm, powerful, eyes focused straight ahead. A quote from her speech sat underneath the photo in bold text. Silence wasn't protecting me. It was protecting them. She and her mom watched it together on the couch. Her mom didn't say much. Just reached over and held her hand. You shook something loose, she said. Some people walk their whole lives and never do that. Ammani didn't reply. She just squeezed her mom's hand and stared ahead. Because the truth was, she had shaken something. Something in the school. In the students. In herself. Not perfectly. Not easily. But powerfully. In the months that followed, the school continued to change. Slowly, yes. Imperfectly, of course. But genuinely. Ammani received messages from students she'd never spoken to, some from her own school, others from different cities. Stories of kids who'd spoken up for the first time. Who'd stopped pretending they were okay just to make things easier for everyone else. She didn't become a celebrity. She didn't need a spotlight. She became something far more dangerous to the system. She became an example. The kind that doesn't fade after the news cycle ends. The kind that stays behind in the cracks of old buildings, in lesson plans that get rewritten, in bathroom stalls that no longer feel unsafe. Because sometimes the loudest protest isn't a march or a chant. Sometimes, it's a calm voice saying, keep talking. You're doing great. Sometimes, it's a phone recording when no one thinks it matters. Sometimes, it's a girl, alone, cornered, and completely unshaken. And sometimes, that's all it takes to crack the silence wide open. When silence is the norm, speaking up is a revolution. Ammani Carile didn't fight with fists, she fought with presence. With proof. With power that didn't shout, but echoed. Let her story be a reminder, if you're ever in a room where something feels wrong, where silence feels like complicity, don't shrink. Don't retreat. Be the one who says something, records something, changes something. If this story moved you, subscribe to True Echo for more stories where truth speaks loudest in the quietest places. Share this with someone who needs the reminder that their voice matters. And drop a comment, we want to hear your story too.